As a salon or spa owner, cosmetology school gave you the skills to serve clients, but it definitely didn't teach you how to run a business. Somewhere along the way, you probably thought ownership would mean freedom, but instead you're working more hours than ever, barely paying yourself, and low-key worried everything's going to fall apart the second you step away. Welcome to the Beauty Biz Breakdown, where we give you the real strategies, systems, and structure that you need to fully step into the CEO seat in your beauty business. Hey, welcome back to the podcast for salon and spa owners who are tired of working hard without seeing real progress and finally ready to build something sustainable and profitable. I'm Brie, and I've got my amazing bestie and co-host Chandra here with me today. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hello.
How you doing?
I am doing good. I'm excited for us to start today.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here with me. And today I want to kind of throw something out to all of our listeners, and I want everybody to just really think about it for a second. What if somebody reached out to you this week and they said, hey, I'm interested in buying your salon, your spa, your beauty business, but we need to have the business cleaned up and completely transfer ready in 90 days. Not a year from now, not when you get around to having time to get everything ready, literally 90 days. Now, before you start thinking this doesn't pertain to me, just stay with me for a second. I get it. I know most of you are not trying or wanting to sell your studios right now. I get that. But that's not really the point of this entire conversation. The reason this question matters is because the 90-day timeline, it has a way of exposing where things in your beauty business are still being held together by you personally, by the owner personally. Because when you're in the day-to-day of running a salon or a spa or a beauty business, whatever you have, it's really easy to feel like things are more systemized than what they actually are. You know, the weeks get handled. The team gets through their shifts, clients are taken care of. From the outside, you look pretty solid. But the minute that you mentally remove yourself from the middle of the operation, I feel like that's when the real pressure starts to show up. And something that Chandra and I have both noticed, especially with commission salon and spa owners who are in that messy middle stage of growth, is that a lot of very, very good businesses are still way more owner dependent than they even realize. Isn't that true, Chandra?
Yeah, even for me. I just went through, not to sell, but through a very similar process with like this. And there was stuff that I realized, oh, I need to make sure this is all done and dialed in.
Yeah, it can be very, very eye-opening. So today, let's walk through kind of the 90-day test and talk honestly about what usually starts to feel kind of shaky first and what that actually tells you about the maturity of your salon or spa. Chandra, you just said that you kind of went through this, but when you think about the owners that we talk to every single week, do you feel like most of them realize how much still runs through them personally? Or do you think that it catches them off guard when we start talking to them on those calls?
Oh, I think they don't realize at all how much runs through them. And when we do start going through that stuff with them, it's like an eye opener. It's very stressful for them in the beginning because they're like, oh my gosh, like they didn't realize that they are literally holding everything all the time.
Yeah, we tend to do this in salon and spa ownership really, really bad. And I know we repeat this all the time, but this industry is just different. You know, I have other businesses that are my babies, but not the way my salon was. Like I felt like I needed to be the rock for everything in that business. And it's a totally wrong way to think about it, for sure. All right. So before we get deeper, I want to share a quick win with one of our members in the BBA Mastery Program. And this one honestly made Chandra and I both so proud to watch unfold. This commission salon owner had been dealing with her team just kind of doing their own thing for quite a while. Not in a super toxic way. It was more like a slow drift that was happening. And I am sure a lot of you out there listening are going to relate to this because our team tends to do this all the time. It was this drift where the standards were starting to get a little loose, and she felt like she was constantly having to circle back behind people and clean things up, like literally every day. Now, when she first came to the Beauty Biz agency, we helped her build her KPIs, her benchmarks. So all of her numbers were there. They were in place. The framework existed, but she wasn't really using them as a coaching tool. We notice this so often with salon and spa owners. Her one-on-ones were happening, but they were still a little too casual, and the team didn't fully feel the connection between their numbers, their growth, and their income. So the work that Chandra and I really focused on with her was getting her lined out on how to actually lead those one-on-one conversations and meetings with intention. We tightened up that rhythm. We got her very clear on what she was supposed to review every single time. And we coached her on how to use those KPI conversations to create real ownership with the team instead of just talking about numbers back and forth. That is never going to work for your team. It's just not. Once she locked that in and she stayed really consistent with it, everything started to change. Within about 2 months, the team started pushing in a completely different way. Promotions started happening like crazy. People started leveling up inside of her salon like they had never done before. Service numbers went up, retail started climbing, and the overall revenue in the building increased across the board. But the part that she noticed just as much was the change in motivation when it came to her people, because now the team could clearly see what it took to make more money and to move up, and they were actually going after it. We hear people say all the time, my team is not money motivated or they have no motivation. But we find when you start to coach them correctly, that really, really changes. I remember her telling us that the structure in her salon felt night and day different once that clarity kind of clicked into place. Chandra, you and I both know when owners stop just tracking those numbers and they start coaching through them, the entire dynamic within the team starts to change. How incredible is it when this happens and when we get to see our members finally get that aha moment?
Oh, I think it's amazing. And I think it kind of leads into some of the stuff that we have are talking about today, because when they are not doing that, it's so stressful. You have such a weight on your shoulders. Your team is never doing what you want. You feel frustrated all the time. And when you start to coach in that way and you start actually getting them motivated, getting them excited, and getting them doing those things, it changes your whole life. Like you don't even realize what a difference it can make. I mean, I noticed even myself years ago when we started doing it that way. Like it's life changing for the owner for sure.
Absolutely. And I think this is where owners start finding a different passion. That's something that you and I have really noticed, right? People say, my passion is behind the chair. My passion is behind the chair. But we notice when they actually learn how to coach and guide correctly, they find passion in such another way because they enjoy actually helping their team grow in ways that they never thought were possible. For me, that's one of the biggest things. It makes my heart just, I love it. It's amazing. All right, so let's actually slow this down just a little bit and look at this the way that a real buyer would. Let's get back into the episode because this is where a lot of owners really have a pretty big aha or a wake up moment, in my opinion. When someone is seriously looking at purchasing a commission salon or spa, they're not emotionally attached to your story. That's the first thing you have to realize. I mean, for real, they're not. They're not thinking about how many late nights you worked, how many hours you've put in. They are looking at one thing over and over in a lot of different ways. And that one thing is when the current owner is no longer here, does this business still consistently make money? That is the number one concern. The very first place their brain goes, whether owners want to realize or admit it or not, is your personal production behind the chair. It really is. If you are still a major producer inside of your salon or your spa, the buyer is already kind of adjusting the picture in their head because they know logically you're not going to be there. Ownership is going to change. And those 40 hours of clients every week, that revenue is not going to exist anymore because you have to personally show up and perform services for that to happen. So in their mind, that is not fully secure business income. They legit can't count that income at all. They just can't. And I really want some of you to think about that for just a second, because this is where so many owners accidentally talk themselves into thinking the business is way stronger than what it actually is. On paper, on your reports, everything probably looks good. You're like, we did $2 million this year, right? We're crushing it. Okay, but let's actually look at it the way that a buyer would for a second. Because if the salon did 2 million, but you personally did 400,000 of that behind the chair, the picture changes pretty dang fast, doesn't it? I mean, really fast. The buyer is immediately thinking, All right, if she sells that 400 is going to walk out the door, so I really don't have anything solid here. Chandra, how many times do we beg people, salon and spa owners, not to count their service revenue as business revenue?
Oh, every time. And everybody's so confused when we tell them not to do that as well. It's so funny. It's like it's not a business if it's all being run by you all the time.
Yeah, 100%. So this buyer isn't looking at a $2 million machine anymore, right? They're looking at what the business produces without the owner being there. And again, this is not to shame anybody out there. I don't want you guys to feel this way, but it's something that was really eye opening for myself when I went through this test. I know Chandra's been through it, and we coach owners through it every single week. So many salon owners are in this phase right now where they are bringing in over 50% of the revenue, you know? And you have to have a clarity moment when you finally separate your personal hustle from the salon's true strength. If you don't, you're going to be in big trouble. This is why at a certain point in your growth, staying heavily behind the chair can actually start working against you. It really can. If your long term goal is to build something that is truly scalable or sellable, whichever you choose, you have to make sure that you are in the role that you need to be in and that your team is producing the money that it needs to produce. Chandra, how did you go about really realizing this in your salon and making sure that you were doing what needed to be done so that you could scale or sell at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing was really taking what I was producing behind the chair out of that total income amount, because that told me the true story of what my business, what my salon was actually doing. So if I'm not there, what is left over, right? And so taking that out, I think, was the first big step. And then just really starting to figure out, how do we replace that income through the team? Like, if I take that, several $100,000 a year out, how do we replace that several $100,000 a year through them bringing that in, so that we're not losing anything, but I'm not being the one that's bringing in that much money?
Yeah. Definitely. I think the owners who build the strongest businesses over time are not the ones who stay that top producer forever. They are the ones who slowly start moving their energy into growing their team, right? Into developing more producers, into tightening their numbers and building something that keeps performing regardless of whether they are there or 6,000 miles away, really. That is what turns a busy salon into an actual asset. And that's what you have to have. I think right alongside with owner production, the next thing that starts to matter a lot is how the rest of the revenue is actually spread out across the team. Because once again, people are not fixed assets, right? Stylists are going to change schedules. People are going to move. Burnout's going to happen. Life is going to happen. So if most of the salon's money is sitting on one or two real heavy hitters, the business is going to start to feel fragile from the outside looking in once again, even if it's not you, the owner. If you have a team of 15 and you've got two top producers that are doing 80% of it, that is a problem. A stronger salon, and I mean like legit stronger, they are going to show multiple people across the floor contributing meaningful numbers. I'm not saying that they have to be perfectly even because that is not real life, but balanced enough that if one person leaves or if they make a change, the whole building isn't going to feel it immediately. This is why Chandra and I always mention, if you want to build at the next level, it's not just getting busier yourself or building one person, it's developing all of your technicians into top producers so the weight of the business isn't sitting on two chairs. We see this over and over again as well. Chandra, when you look at a team's production spread, what makes you immediately think, okay, this is solid versus, oh, this is just a little bit risky?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just what you said. Like, it's, if you've got two or three stylists that are bringing in the bulk of the revenue, that is going to be risky, right? And then you've got all these new stylists who aren't bringing in much at all, and I think that's the biggest red flag that we see right there. And I agree. Like, I think I was told this a long time ago, and it's always stuck with me, from a salon owner that I always really admired, and he always said, "Manage the old while you develop the new." And I think that's something you have to really always keep in mind, is your old ones that are cranking, that are bringing those numbers, that's great. But you really have to focus on getting those newer people bringing those similar numbers, or else, again, like you said, you're going to end up in a big mess. So,
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I've never heard that, but that is brilliant. And I think everybody out there listening should take that to heart because that's a really good statement there. Okay, the next piece that we have to talk about is your financial picture because this is another area where the strength of the business becomes really obvious really, really fast. Please don't hear that and think that we are telling you to build some giant monster spreadsheet or complicated spreadsheet. That's not what we mean. I mean, if someone sat down and they looked at the last 12 months, would it make sense for them quickly? That's what a buyer is looking for. Could they follow what's happening without you having to walk them through it for like half an hour or 2 hours? You know, money in, money out, what you spent, what you kept. I have seen a lot of salons get in trouble in this area right here because they don't have anything solid. They don't have reporting, or they mix personal and business money and it makes the numbers look really messy and inconsistent. And I'm going to tell you this, messy numbers, that is going to make buyers very, very nervous very, very quickly. If the numbers don't make sense to them really fast, it's going to create doubt, and doubt kills deals 100%. Chandra, when we start helping owners clean this up and fix it at the Beauty Biz agency, what usually is the biggest surprise moment for the majority of them?
That they think they have more money than they have because they don't really know what's happening in their financials. They don't even really know like why they're paying things a certain way, or that they're paying way more on commission than they should be. I just think that they really, a lot of times, they're commingling stuff or things like you said, and it's like once we start really breaking that down and going through it, it's like, oh, and that's how we are able to tighten it up and get them profitable really quick, because a lot of times it's just a lack of knowledge and a lack of discipline in that area. But yeah, you got to clean that up because nobody's going to buy a messy business.
Well, and it blows my mind how many owners out there have no sort of tracking or reporting or anything. I mean, half of these salon owners that I have known over the last 2 decades, they don't even have a profit and loss statement. Like, it's that sad. So this is something that you really need, whether you're going to sell or not. It is the only way that you are going to get profitable. It's the only way you're going to be able to get out from behind the chair. And it's the only way you are going to be able to pay yourself for running the business instead of producing behind the chair. So after the numbers, I think next buyers start paying very close attention to how the salon actually runs day to day when the owner is not right in the middle of things. And this is where, like a lot of owners, they get really uncomfortable, if we're being honest, because the real question becomes, does this place actually run the same whether the owner is there or not? If you took 2 days off, would the day still move cleanly? Would the front desk still know, how to handle things? Would your team follow the same standards? Or does everything just get a little bit looser the second that you physically step out of the building? Buyers are watching those patterns like a hawk. They really are. In fact, a lot of times when buyers come in to look at your business, they will come in and shadow and watch things like this for a certain amount of time. If the guests are always somehow finding, I don't know, if guest issues always find their way back to your phone, that's a problem. That's the best way that I can say it. If the front desk team is constantly double checking basic decisions, that is a freaking problem. If policies are strong one week and then they're kind of optional the next, that is going to tell the buyer that this business is heavily propped up by the owner being present and paying attention every second of every day. This is normal in a growing salon in the early stages. It is very, very normal. But the problem is most owners don't realize that it's happening once they're in year 2, year 3, year 5, year 10, right? Because you are so used to being the safety net in the background, it just becomes habit. From the outside looking in, this part I think carries a lot more weight than what most owners realize. Because what someone evaluating the business is really trying to figure out is whether the experiences are going to stay steady without you right in the middle of it every single day. You have to think about that client experience. You have to think about how you get those referrals, how you get those reviews, how you get the things that you need to build and grow that business. And if those things aren't consistent enough, then you're going to have a problem, in my opinion. Chandra, we focus on client experience. We focus on systems. We focus on all of these things heavy, heavy, heavy at the Beauty Biz agency. Why do you think it's so important? And why do you think so many owners are still stuck in the middle of being the system themselves instead of actually having systems?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're important because that's how your business runs without you there. That's how everything stays the same consistency, that everything keeps growing when you're gone. Like that's how those things happen is having those systems in place, having that stuff dialed in. And I think the owners struggle with that because setting up systems is hard, right? Like we all find it hard. It takes time, it takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of pivoting and effort and all of those things. You have to train your team. And that's where I think we find a lot of people just think, oh, I've created a guest experience. I gave my team the paper that says how they're supposed to do it. Nobody's doing it. Why aren't they doing it? And they get frustrated. And then if they don't step in and do it themselves and take over again, the whole thing just falls apart. So I think that's where the frustration comes in. It takes time, it
Yeah.
takes effort, it takes training your team, it takes sometimes weeding out your team if they don't understand and don't want to be part of what you're doing. And all those things are hard and stressful. But once you get through that and once you get the systems dialed in, then it's so much easier. Like it's just that
Yeah.
upfront time and effort that you have to put in. And then on the back end, it's like an investment and then it grows itself, right? And so I think that's where they get stuck. We see it all the time.
Yeah, we do. We see it all the time. And I think training was one of the most important words that you brought up because something that we hear consistently is, well, I told them to do this and I've showed them to do this and I mentioned it in a meeting. That is not training. I don't care what you say. That is not how you train employees to do things. You really have to have a rhythm. You really have to have training protocols. You really have to have everything solidified and written down. And it's going to take you more than an hour. It's going to take you more than a 10-minute huddle. It's going to take you more than a week to get all of this implemented and in place the way that you need it and get it locked down. And honestly, it's never going to be locked down fully. It's something that you are always going to have to, come back in and revise and adjust in certain ways. But if you don't have those systems and you don't have that training in place, you're never going to get away from your business. It's never going to happen. I think the next part you kind of mentioned a little bit, Chandra, and I would say is probably the leadership in the building, because I think this is a big maturity signal, whether owners like it or not, right? If you are still the one that is having to have every conversation with all of your employees about performance, about being in trouble, about anything, if you're the only one that is watching the benchmarks and the KPIs, if you are the only one stepping in when people start to drift or do something wrong, that is going to tell a buyer the business is still centered around you as well. Once again, this is normal early on. Most of us built it that way on purpose, right? But as your salon grows, buyers want to see that someone else in the building can actually help hold the standard. You have to have people that are in leadership roles, not just someone with a cute manager title, because we see that all the time too. Well, I have a manager, but the manager asks the owner every single thing. So they're literally getting paid for nothing. It is a huge mistake. I mean, you need someone who can coach on performance, on follow up. You need someone who can keep, things from just sliding sideways when you're not able to watch every move. Chandra, what is usually your giveaway that an owner has real leadership support in place versus they just have someone with a title, but the owner is still carrying everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think when the owner does not have to be involved in every single decision that's being made and single thing that's happening, which we do see sometimes, but that's usually the more unicorn, right? When somebody actually has those things in place and that leadership in place where they just check in with management. They just check in with them, make sure everything's running smooth, make sure everything's going the way it needs to be. They don't have to be that person anymore that every single person in your business is coming to for the final word. And so it I mean, that's what everybody wants, right? Like that's what we shoot for. And I feel like usually it's the latter where they have a manager and they tell us that, oh, I have a lead stylist and I have a manager and I have a this and I have a that, but then like nobody knows what's going on and everything is chaos and the owner is still putting out every little fire and their managers doesn't know what to do. Their manager can't even do anything because usually the owner's not even giving them the freedom to do it. Usually the owner's kind of holding them back. And we see that all the time too. So I would say those are the two giveaways for either side of what we see happening a lot out there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Salon and spa owners are control freaks. I'm going to say it because you're the nice one. And I always just come out bluntly and say it. And you do not give people the authority that they need to do their job. It's really, really sad because it's holding you back, it's holding them back, and it's holding your business back in more ways than you're ever even able to imagine. It's a bad thing. So let the control go because it's not the end of the world. If they mess up, it can be fixed. And that's how people learn and that's how they grow. And it is the only way that you're going to find freedom. I think one of the last pieces that buyers quietly look at is demand stability. Not just were we slammed last week, but are clients actually coming back consistently? Are they rebooking at healthy levels? Is the schedule steady most of the time? Or does it kind of constantly need to be rescued with promos or last minute pushes or discounts or things of that nature? Because a business that only stays full when the owner is there and they're pushing really, really hard in the background, it feels very different from one that has steady repeat behavior actually built in. When you zoom all the way out, what buyers are really measuring is simple, in my opinion. How much of the business stands on its own 2 feet, not how hard you work, not how talented you are, not how packed your chair is, how steady the machine is without you, the owner, holding it all together. And honestly, I think that's why I love this 90-minute test or this 90-day test so much, because it forces you to actually see the difference between your personal hustle as the business owner and actual business strength. It is extremely eye-opening. Chandra, when owners finally look at their salon through this type of lens, they are checking off all of these boxes, looking and making sure that they're doing all of this. What do you think kind of hits them first to where they're like, oh crap, I really, really need to do some work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really when they picture themselves not in the business, what happens? Like what's going to happen if you're not there? What's going to happen if your revenue's not there? And I think that's the biggest thing that hits them in the face because they're not thinking about that at all. And then when they actually sit and put those numbers down or think about what's going to happen if they're not the one putting out the fires, they realize like their business is in dire need of rescuing at that point.
Absolutely. And something else that I think we need to add too is even if you're not in the building, if your phone is blowing up when you are away, that's a huge telltale sign because the new buyers, they can't have that. They don't want that. I wouldn't want to buy a business where I'm needed 24/7. Heck to the no, not happening. And so you really need to think about that because even if you take a vacation or a day off or you go get your nails done or whatever, and your phone is constantly ringing or you're getting asked questions, that is something you really, really need to think about. You should not have those issues. You should not have those problems. You should be able to go away and your business should be able to run and stand on its own without you being in the middle of it. All right, so let's shift this into what you can actually start doing this week because I don't want this to be one of those episodes where you just nod your head and then nothing actually changes in your business. If you want to know whether your salon would pass this 90-day test, the first thing that Chandra and I want you to do, like literally today, is run your real numbers without your personal production in them. I don't mean some mental estimate. I mean actually pull the reports. Look at your last 12 months of revenue and subtract what you personally produced behind the chair. Then I want you to sit with that number for a second. Because for a lot of owners, this is the moment where things get very real, very fast. If your stomach drops a little bit when you see what the business does without you, that is a good thing. That awareness is exactly where real building starts. Next, I want you to look at your revenue spread across your team. This is going to be easy. You're just going to pull your production by provider and ask yourself, if my top one or two people left tomorrow, how hard would that hit the business financially? If that thought makes you uncomfortable, your next focus needs to be developing more producers across the floor so the weight of your business isn't sitting on just a few shoulders. Third, do a really quick reality check on your numbers and on your reporting. Could someone outside your business understand your last 12 months without you having to narrate the entire story? Do you have clean separation between business and personal money? Are your core reports easy to pull and consistent from month to month? Do you have a tracking system or profit and loss that clearly shows what actually is happening in your business? If not, This is one of the most important cleanups that you can make right now. And if you are unsure where to start in this area, please reach out to us. We have built a tracker that is specifically used for beauty businesses that walks you through it step by step. Nobody, and I mean this when I say it, nobody in this industry has a tracker like this. Fourth, and this is a big one, guys, quietly observe your salon for the next 2 weeks and notice what only runs smoothly when you are physically there. I don't want you to fix anything yet, just notice. Notice what questions always come back to you. Notice where the front desk hesitates. Notice where standards start to drift the second that your attention moves somewhere else. Those friction points, they are gold because they're showing you exactly where the business is still leaning too heavily on you being the glue for everything. And finally, start looking at where you can slowly, and I do mean slowly, start to shift your time out of pure service production and into developing your team and tightening all of your systems and structure. This does not mean that you have to disappear from the chair overnight so you can just relax. I will repeat that as many times as I need to make you feel comfortable. But if your long-term goal is to build something scalable, sustainable, or eventually sellable, your role has to evolve over time. So for some of you out there that opened your salons 20 years ago and you are still behind the chair, you have got to evolve or you are never going to be able to retire or sell your business. The earlier you start being intentional about this shift, the smoother the entire process is going to become. So let's wrap up what this call was all about. If a big portion of your salon's revenue still depends on you personally being behind the chair all week, then what you have right now, in all honesty, is a high-paying job inside of your own business. And I know that might hurt some of your feelings, but if you are producing revenue behind the chair, you aren't a business owner. Listen, it's where a lot of you guys are. I was there for a really, really long time because you build it, you fill the chairs, you fix the problems, you keep everything moving. That's totally normal, especially in the beginning. But if your long-term goal is more freedom, more stability, or something that could actually run without you glued to the floor forever, you have to start making changes. Nobody is valuing how tired you are. They are looking at what the salon produces without you in the middle of everything. So if your name is still sitting way at the top of the production report, if the building still runs tighter when you are there, if too many decisions still have to come back through you, that's your answer right there. Don't panic. Don't burn everything down, but do make changes. You have to recognize where your next level of work actually is. I'm telling you, you do not want to be behind the chair 10, 20, 30, 40 years later with nothing to show for it. You don't want to do that. Too many owners do that, and it's not a good thing. So like I said in the beginning, this conversation, it's not really about pushing you to sell your business. That's not what it's about at all. It's about helping you clearly see how owner dependent your beauty business still is so that you can start tightening things up and building real freedom into the structure. The goal should never be to work forever, just to keep the wheels turning. I don't know why we make that normal in this industry. The goal is to build something that is going to support your life, support your time, and support the future that you want to have. If you enjoyed this episode or if it hit home, please share it with another owner who needs to hear it. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. It helps other salon owners find the show. You can always grab some of our free resources and check out our coaching options at www.thebeautybizagency.com. You've been listening to The Beauty Biz Breakdown, where salon owners stop being the glue that holds everything together and they start leading like the CEOs they were meant to be. Until next time, tighten the structure, protect your time, and start building the freedom your business was supposed to give you. Now go out there, make bank, run the show, and ditch that chair. And as always, keep slaying those missed goals with a whole lot of swagger. If this episode lit a fire under you, don't just walk away and let it die out. Deep down, you already know where you want your business and your life to go. And the truth is, the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is a real plan to get you there. That's exactly what we help you build. So if you're ready to stop trying to figure it out on your own, head to thebeautybizagency.com and book your free strategy call. That call can give you the clarity that you've been needing and a real plan to move your business forward. Because at the end of the day, the only thing standing between you and the salon business you've been dreaming about is whether or not you're willing to take the action and the steps in order to build it.